Welcome to the Money Script Podcast. It's your host, Yohance Harrison. So happy to be with each and every one of you today. We're rocking it out in season 4. Told y'all I'm bringing the heat as always. And I'm out here making some new friends, which is also very, very exciting. I don't know when you're listening to this, but for us right now, it is February. We are in Dallas. We just thawed out. We just dealt with some ice again. I know y'all get tired of me talking about the ice in Dallas, but hey, it just keeps happening. It's weird, but we're getting used to it. Well, because it is February, we just had some wonderful things happen last night. Was it last night? I'm losing track of the days, but LeBron James is now officially the highest scoring basketball player in the NBA. He just broke that record this week. We also had the State of the Union that happened with President Biden. So he was sharing some of the strategies and economic outlook that he has for the U.S. And other than that, we've also had this whole chat GPT thing going on with Microsoft and Google battling each other for who's going to be the first one to make the official Terminator and bring us all down. So it's fun times to be living in. It's very exciting. I am very excited about the guest that I have today because we're going to get to talk about music, which is one of my favorite topics. For those that know me, you know that I'm a big music lover, big lover of hip hop as well. And I have a special guest here that is in that industry. So I'm really excited to speak with him. And in case this is your first time listening to us or tuning in on YouTube, I am a financial advisor. I'm the CEO of MoneyScript Wealth Management. What I do is I just help clients bring alignment between their values, their goals, and their financial behaviors. We all have our own personal money scripts, these ideas and strategies that we've come up with in our head about how our relationship with money. I'm just here to help you break through it, create a new money script, and have a better relationship with your money. So with that, let's just get into it because I know Chris, I think he's probably got a plane to catch or something like that. So I want to go ahead and bring him into this. So I'd like to introduce Chris Atlas. He is the Executive VP of Urban Music and Marketing at Warner Brothers and Warner Records. So Chris, welcome to the Money Script Podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, and excited to talk to you today. So thank you.
Indeed, indeed. So let's just start with what do you do for Warner? What does it mean to be an executive VP of urban music?
Yeah, I've been at Warner Records for 6 years, and I started as SVP of marketing, and within the 6 years' time, been able to grow from SVP to EVP. And what that means in my tenure at Warner is I oversaw the marketing strategies, plans, executions for the urban roster that Warner Records has, as well as leading a team of product managers and the marketing team, not just on the artist releases, but the overall strategy and creative direction that we look to guide for Warner Records. To my current role, we're still at Warner, back in New York City, EVP East Coast Operations and Urban Music. So still lending my marketing and artist development expertise with the urban accent roster that we have at Warner, but also managing a bit more of the operations aspect of our New York office, New York team, and building out just the operations that we have centered in New York and some of our joint ventures.
So before Warner, you said you've only been there, you said 7 years now?
Yes, six. Actually, it'll be 6 years in June, so approaching 6 years. Yeah.
Okay. So where were you previously?
I was at Def Jam Records, Island Def Jam Records, prior to Warner for close to 10 years. Prior to that, I was at Cornerstone, the agency, which Cornerstone also is the parent agency for the Fader magazine. I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably are familiar with the Fader magazine. And prior to that, the very start of my career, I started at Tommy Boy Records. So
Oh, okay.
definitely.
Tommy ain't my mother loving boy.
Yeah, that's an infamous quote.
Yeah. I told
Yeah,
y'all I'm a hip hop head. I
yeah,
told
no,
y'all.
no, yeah, that's that line from Noriega is infamous.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, indeed. Okay, so yeah, so I was with Def Jam in '98. So last part of '97, '98, and '99.
Okay,
And I
yeah.
my last stint with them was the Hard Not Life tour.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I was a
yeah.
freshman in college while that was happening, and I decided the tour was more important than college. and thought I could make a deal with all my professors and say, hey, I'm going to miss class for about 3 months, but I'll come back for the exam.
Yeah. I don't know
Half
if
of
that
them
worked
didn't go
out.
for it.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
half of them did. There was a few that did.
Okay, okay.
I shout out to my English professor. He was like, "Yeah, go ahead, live your life. Better pass my exam." And I did. I passed this exam.
All right, well, there you go.
Um, the one professor that did not go for it, I was really frustrated about, was my African American history professor. I was like, "Come
Mm,
on."
mm.
I was like, "This is for the culture," but
Yeah,
nah,
yeah,
he wasn't having it. He wasn't having it.
yeah.
So
That was an incredible tour too. That was a great time.
incredible tour. It was incredible tour. It was one of the most amazing parts of the tour was watching DMX um, kind of outshine Jay Z.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah,
That was very interesting watching that unfold.
yeah.
Um, and then I had a lot of fun with Redman and Method Man as well.
Hmm.
I got to know their crews and their camps pretty good, and was able to do some little side shows with them. You know, after the show was
Yep.
over, go run a couple clubs, that sort of thing, on the college campuses. And oh man, we had a ball. I
Yeah,
miss those days.
I can see it. I can see you
Those are good
reminiscing.
days. I am.
The
I am.
memories of the flashing back. I see it in your
Oh
eyes. You're
man, they're
like,
flashing
man.
back. They're flashing back. And you know what was one of the most incredible things about that time, which also has a lot to do with the business I'm in now, is that I saw a lot of money,
Yeah.
and I saw it come and go very quickly. I mean, one of the most exciting things I experienced was I watched Jay Z and Ja Rule and Memphis Blake and others play Monopoly with real money.
Mm, mm,
And at
mm.
one point, I was, hey, you want to get in? Actually, I was the one who went and fetched the Monopoly board. I had to go to, I was running all over Greensboro trying to find a Monopoly set.
Yeah,
Um, but they're like, hey, you want to get in? We'll spot you. I was like,
yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, I'm just gonna watch y'all play.
Yeah, yeah. Smart
But
move.
yeah. But I saw there was a a producer that we went to go see in Atlanta. I can't remember who we were trying to connect with the producer, but that producer had his property seized by the IRS because
Mm,
he didn't pay his taxes.
mm.
So we were scrambling, trying to figure out what are we going to do now. So you know, it
Yeah.
was. But I saw a lot of the good of how much money can be made, and the bad of how the bad habits and
Hmm.
spending
Yep.
and not having your entity set up properly and all of that stuff can have as well. So like
Yep.
I said, it
Yep.
has a lot to do with why I take a lot of pride in the work I do now,
Yeah.
because I like reaching out to the artists and people in the industry and saying, hey, let's set your stuff up properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're just dealing with right now offset, excuse
Yeah.
me, takeoff.
Take
That's the
off.
one.
Yes.
Takeoff, where you know, he passed away without having any estate documents in place,
Mm, mm,
which means the state of Georgia is going to have to divide up his belongings.
And the state
Um,
decides.
the state decides. The
Hmm.
state
Yeah.
decides instead
Yeah.
of him getting to decide. Now, of course, he was young. No one. I mean, he didn't think
Yeah.
his time was going to be that
Of
early.
course. Yeah.
But when you start to deal with a lot of money and assets,
Yeah.
you got to get that work done. Because if you don't, then you're just going to let the state decide for you. And I don't think
Agreed.
any of us want the state. I don't care if it's
No.
Georgia, California, Texas, New York.
Yeah.
We don't want
No.
the states making those decisions, because that
Yeah.
can cost a lot of money and it can take a lot of time
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it could not go to the intended people that the owner or the person will actually want it to go to. So
exactly. No, it doesn't. No, it goes whoever shows up at court and says, "Hey, I'm supposed to get some of this," and they can make
yeah.
a prove that they should deserve it. I mean, that's the judge. What the judge says goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you know, if you don't want your estate subject to that, then you got to do some estate planning. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying. And estate planning is not as complicated as we think.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're under $10 million in assets, which there are a lot of most artists still are under
Yep.
10 million in assets.
Hmm.
You can actually do it online
Hmm. Hmm.
and it'll be valid. You know, as long as you go get it notarized, all that stuff, it'll be valid.
It'll be valid.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't have to go sit down with an attorney and spend tens of thousands of dollars. You can do
Yeah.
it for the low of, you know, a couple grand
Yeah.
and get it done. So,
Yeah.
but most
And
people don't know, nor do they want to take the time
yeah. Yeah.
thinking about their own death.
Yeah. And
So,
it
but
happens. It happens more frequently than not. Just because,
oh yeah,
to your point, no one is ever thinking or trying to plan for, when they're not here. But it's something that is taken for granted.
it is. And you know what though, uh, I haven't validated this, but it would not surprise me if these labels and these organizations have life insurance or key person insurance on some of these artists because they're the breadwinners. They're going to make sure that, hey, if you're not making any more music, then we're still going to get ours. Okay. Because
Mm.
that's something a business can do. A business can,
Yeah, yeah.
at my business, I can buy a life insurance policy on any one of my key employees if I
Hmm.
so choose to do so.
Hmm.
And if something happens to them, yeah, I get paid. I
Yeah,
don't have to worry
yeah,
about that probate stuff. No, I'm good. I got
yeah,
mine.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but anyways, we're supposed to be having a happy show. Let's not talk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, but at the same time, listen, people, we want you to learn something from this. That's the whole point. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing
Yeah.
it. So I want to get into a little bit of your money story because you do have an interesting one, especially since you were being in the music industry. I'm sure you've seen a lot of some of the things that I alluded to earlier.
Yes.
But I'm curious, when did your eyes first open to money, how it works? Or better yet, let's go ahead and ask the question. I know we get to this a little bit later in the show, but we're going to do it early right now. What's your first memory of money?
Um, wow, I mean, I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I grew up in middle class family. My mom, my dad, were both present in my life, and my dad actually, he brought us up in the church, me and my three brothers. So, and we would, he would take us to church every Sunday. And I remember, particularly on Sundays was the time when he would give out the allowance to, me and my brothers. And granted, I'm the youngest, so he would give out the allowance to my older brothers. And, I wouldn't really get much, it'd be like a dollar, a couple bucks, you know what I mean? But just something, that I could have in my pocket, right? Just to go get candy or, being at school, things of that nature. So, you know, those, rides to church on Sunday, if you will, and, him giving out allowance, was a way for him to teach myself and my brothers just the value of money and the responsibility of money. And as simple as that was, it started to instill in me just the importance of, you know getting a dollar and making a dollar. And as I got older, trying to do things around the house and do chores so that I could get more than a couple dollars, and I kind of remember those trips with him, just as a way to just, me kind of earning and understanding the value of a buck.
Mm. So do you have kids now?
Yeah, I do.
So do you practice the same thing? Are you giving out dollars on Sundays?
Not on Sundays, but based on, chores around the house or good grades or, key milestones. Uh, so that there's a sense of accomplishment. It's just like, I feel like I was blessed, to come up in a, pretty, stable home, even though we had our trials and tribulations. And, I think those lessons have afforded me just the hustle to where I've been able to provide, for my family, at a greater scale, just based on, where the economy, has is kind of gone. So, um, those things that I have, I definitely, kind of instill in my family.
So what would you think is your greatest financial lesson that you've learned in your lifetime?
I think my greatest financial lesson is, um, you can't be afraid to take risks,
Mm,
um, but also at the same time, you can't risk more than you're prepared to lose.
facts.
And I say that in a sense where, I'm someone that, I invest. I try to be ambitious with, how I invest, but also, risking, or taking a few chances in terms of trying to earn money. And sometimes it doesn't always pan out. So as much as I might take a risk, it's usually a calculated risk. And, at the end of the day, I'm prepared to lose it or if I don't see a return. And
Mhm.
that's not the norm. That's not what I want to do in every instance, but sometimes it goes to what you're investing in, who you're partnering with, doing your research, just to try to, be as strategic as you can in terms of how, you invest your money and your time.
Got it. Indeed. No, you're absolutely correct. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is not understanding how to measure their risk. Um, because when the stock market's going up and everybody's making money, it's really easy for anyone to say, "Oh, I can make money in the stock market. I can do this. I can go and whether it's Robinhood or E Trade, whatever it is, and I can go make a quick buck." And that's very easy when the market's going up.
Yeah.
But when it's going in the other direction, all of a sudden they feel like they've been slighted. Like, oh, what happened? It's that last person that gets in at the tail end of the bull market, and then
Yep.
everything goes the other way, and then it's the market's fault. And it's like, no, this is just part of it.
Yep.
This was the risk that you were willing to take, but you didn't understand how to calculate your risk.
Yep.
You didn't understand how much you were willing to lose, or you were doing the infamous gambling with the house's money. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Or gambling with your reserve fund. The
yeah.
money that you may need in an emergency. You're gambling with that, and that's not investing. That's gambling. That's what
Yeah.
it is. And there's a
Yeah.
difference between investing and gambling, and that's one of the reasons we have this podcast to try to help people open their eyes to learn some of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how would you define financial independence?
Um, how would I define financial independence? I think that comes in many ways. I think financial independence to me is, having a peace of mind to be able to provide for myself, and my family, right? Whether that's through smart investments, savings, business portfolio, not necessarily having to live check to check. Um, and planning for the unexpected, you know, whether that's, you know, loss of job, loss of income, you know, tragedy, accident, just being prepared for, the unknown. And again, I think that comes, in a variety of ways based on, how I manage my money, how I manage my business, how, I manage my debt, because I think everyone, we all carry a certain amount of debt. And that's inherent, but it's important just to be able to kind of manage all aspects of, your financial and your personal, life in a proper and an orderly way.
Agreed. I absolutely agree with you that and financial independence is different for each person. And again, that's the purpose that we have here is helping people define what their financial independence is. So listen, Chris, I appreciate you just having the corpus of our conversation here around finances, getting people into that mode of thinking about their money and hearing your story as well. I know a lot of our listeners also experience getting an allowance from their parents or from their grandparents, and hopefully, as they got older or as they matured, they were able to manage that money a little bit better. Because understand this: getting allowance is no different than getting a paycheck.
Hmm.
Okay. It's money that's being given to you from an outside entity. Okay. Whether it was for something you did or not for something you did. So whether you're getting it just because it's a pension because you worked many, many years before, or you're getting it because you showed up for work today. It's money that's coming to you that then you get to decide what to do with it. Okay. And you are in control of how you spend your money. Now, there's a lot of things that you cannot just change on a month to month basis about how your money's spent. Like if you have a rental contract and you're paying rent or a mortgage, you can't just decide, I don't want to pay rent this month or I want to pay a different amount. That one you can't change, but you
Hmm.
can change how you consume your food. Okay. Prepared calories cost more than calories that you prepare yourself. Simply put, eating out costs more than going to the grocery store. Okay, the subscriptions that you have, take an inventory. Are you really using all the subscriptions that you have? Could you have a few less subscriptions in your life and still have a meaningful and happy life? Again, these are the things you get to choose of how you want to spend your money. And ultimately, how are you saving your money? Are you putting money away for a rainy day? Because what if that entity that's providing that money to you decides one day that they're not going to provide it anymore? And I know there's a lot of that going on in the industry right now. People are getting laid off left and right. Okay. Even people in higher positions that had
Yeah.
no idea. I've had that happen to me. Clients like, they're doing layoffs. I'm safe. And then a couple of weeks later, like, I wasn't safe.
Yeah.
Okay. So making sure you're prepared for the things that you cannot control, that you had that you did not see coming. So I want to segue here, since I have another music mogul here with me. I want to have a little fun. I've been debating this with some friends of mine, and just having conversations around money, the topic of money in hip hop.
Hmm.
If you have you ever seen one of those word maps where they go and listen to a bunch of songs or what have you, or listen to a bunch of speeches, and then they find the words that are showing up in the speech the most. And
Hmm.
those, you see those big maps.
Yep.
I haven't done the math, but I'm willing to bet that the word money is in a lot of hip hop.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay, we like to talk about money a lot.
Yes.
However, what we don't really talk about that much is actual practical financial literacy. Hip hop talks about making money, hip hop talks about spending money. But there are very few artists that actually will put a message out about saving money, about estate planning, about investing. Not gambling. They'll talk about gambling, but they don't talk about that much about investing. So, Chris, I'm curious of what your thoughts are. Why is that?
Well, I mean, I think, with hip hop, right? And even when you go back to the roots of hip hop, um, there has always been an air of bravado, flashiness, the aspiration of wanting more because you're coming from less. And I think when you look at just hip hop in general, it's a form of entertainment. So it's cool to talk about the things that you aspire to have or own or want, um and I think as hip hop has matured as an art form, and even certain artists have matured, um I think you've seen a range of those topics, you know, where they might not be introduced readily, and it's not something that you know there's dedicated songs to. But I mean, there's several, I think, great examples of, hip hop artists that have become great business people, and whether they rap about it in terms of a subject matter for a song, I think the examples that they put forth in terms of how they have become business people is that testament to. I might not rap about it in all my records, but if you look at what I'm doing, with my brand, you know, um, it's an example of how, as a business person, you can actually, operate successfully. And there's a lot of examples of that from, you know, you know, Jay-Z, of course, Nas, Master P, Diddy, Fat Joe,
Today's price is not yesterday's
yeah,
price.
so I think
He
that,
just spit knowledge there. I don't even think he realized what he was saying because he was just in the moment. But
yeah.
man,
And again, I think, and I think there's some, I think there's some artists that they'll drop a jewel here and there about just the value of, enterprise and being an entrepreneur, and I think it's done in a way where if you're really about it, you got to seek it out. You have to, you know, look at the blueprint, that some of these artists are actually doing in terms of how they're managing their business, where they're still talking about, popping champagne and, you know, having the Rolls Royce truck and the jewelry, but, they're operating and managing their business, in a way where they're trying to just be successful business people.
Indeed. And I think I personally believe that because so many of these artists are getting to a stage where they have more, that they actually have a duty and an obligation, I feel, to just drop some of those gems along the way. We can't just count on Jay-Z because he doesn't put out enough music. Um, Nas is doing a little bit better about it. Nas is still bringing out albums
Yep,
a
yep.
couple times a year. But he does. He speaks to the investments that he's making. He speaks to real estate ownership. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Big Boy, who's still putting
Big
music
Boy,
out,
another great example,
he speaks to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually on one of he has a song, Order of Operations, and he's not even spitting a verse. He did in a little interlude. He says, "When I got my first check, I bought a Cadillac." Um, but then when he got his next advance, he bought some land.
Yeah, yeah.
And he
And
said he just had to switch it up. He was like, I learned. He's
yeah,
like, wait a minute, I had to learn that there was better things or other things that I could be doing with my money.
but I think that's expected. I think that's okay, right? Because, when I was a teenager and as I started getting into, music and grew, within my career, like there was some nice things that I wanted, right? And I bought them. But at the same time, the evolution for me wasn't just continuing to buy nice things because I want them. It was the balance of, okay, I want that Rolex, but also at the same time, I'm going to buy my first house,
Hmm.
or I want that G Wagon, but at the same time, I'm going to buy an investment property or invest in the stock market. So, again, I think it's up to the individual, right? But, you know, we work hard, we have aspirations, of nice things and quality of life, right? So it's to me, it's always about the balance of, enjoying the fruits of your labor, if you will, but also at the same time being smart with how you're investing. Because, I think one of the lessons my dad, always taught me was, you always have to, prepare for the famine, and you
Hmm.
can't always feast, and because if you're just, always living, feasting, you know, if you hit a hard time, and you're not ready, what are you going to do? And again, I think to one of the earlier points you mentioned, where you still see a lot of artists that, whether they have tax issues or they're mismanaging, their money, because it's like, all right, well, are you always feasting, or are you are you really, kind of preparing, for a hardship that might not be expected?
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, I hope that as the hip hop continues to mature. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, hip hop! 50 years of hip hop.
50 years.
50 years, which is crazy. Um, we still in it. We still doing it, and it keeps surprising me every single year. I do hope that now that hip hop is reaching the retirement age, that we have.
Wait, is 50 the retirement age?
No,
Nah.
no, he's trying to get an AARP card though, so
Okay, all right, there you go. You got the ARP
yeah, get an
card.
AARP card. So, but I hope that we can have more artists, especially those that have a little bit more of a mainstream appeal to our younger generations. I hope that more of them can start to sneak a little bit more financial literacy into their verses, into their rhymes, just so that it's not all make it spend it, like you said, feast, 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 feast.
Yeah, yeah.
We got to have more people. I actually did one of the artists that surprised me the most, but then again, if you look at his background, wasn't surprised at all. Was Little Dicky.
Hmm.
Little Dicky made a whole song called "Save That Money."
Hmm.
and it was a great track, a great track. And there was a lot of gems in there. But the thing is Little Dicky going to show up in everybody's playlist? He's not.
Yeah.
He's not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other artists that will show up in the playlist. And again, the message that a lot of times the message that I'm hearing from them is just making spend, making spend, making spend. And it's like, okay, we got it. There's going to be a rainy day. And if you're not prepared for that rainy day, you might be looking for another job. So, with that, listen, Chris, I appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us here on the podcast. Before we go, I would like to give you the opportunity to share with the people what are you working on, what artists do they need to look out for. Just share a little bit about just from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of incredible, young talent that we're working on. NLE Choppa, who is young artist out of Memphis. We've been working with him, for the past 3-4 years, and he has a new project upcoming. He's already dropped several, great mixtapes and albums, so we're really excited about him. Working with Saweetie, who Saweetie is definitely become quite a force, not just in hip hop, but in entertainment. And, she's
Hmm.
someone that's very savvy in terms of how she manages her business and building out her brand. So very excited about, the new music that, she has, upcoming. Um, we actually also released a project from Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs is someone that,
Freddie Gibbs from back in the day.
yeah, Freddie Gibbs still going,
Okay. All right,
and
Freddie.
Freddie Gibbs is someone that has really grown as a businessman and entrepreneur, and you know, um, I see how he invests, in himself and his team in terms of not just records, but his acting career, and he's doing a wine, and he has a merch business, so.
See, that's
You know,
see, that's 50-year-old hip hop there doing a wine. Yeah,
I'm
that's 50.
saying,
That's 50-year-old hip hop right there.
yeah, and then we on the Warner side, we have just a series of just new rappers doing Jersey Club, Philly Club, Too Rare out of Philadelphia, Bandman Real out of Jersey, Shy K out of the Bronx, my hometown. So again, I think what I'm always excited about just hip hop is it continues to evolve, and I think it truly speaks to just the young generation, and it continues to evolve, it continues to set trends. And as I'm an older hip hopper and and exec in the business, like, I have appreciation for the classics, but also in appreciating the classics, I think the one thing that you'd probably even agree, hip hop just has always evolved with the times and always been reflective of what the people are into. And I think as long as that continues to happen, hip hop will continue to shine.
Indeed, it will. Indeed, it will. Chris, where can the people find you if they're looking for you?
I'm on Instagram. It's Atlas Prime, ATLASPRAME. That's pretty much my main form of social media. And you know you see me around. I'm in the streets, as they say.
Hey, well, let me know when you're in Dallas. We'd love to check you out, break some bread. Check out. I'm sure you have artists coming through here at some point. So
Yeah, absolutely.
when you're here, let me know. We appreciate you spending some time on the Money Script podcast. And everyone, go listen to some new music today. Okay, he dropped like 5 names that I didn't even know. I'm gonna have to go back and play back. Like who? But go listen to some new music today. Okay, listen to some new music. Also think about your feast and famine. Okay, if you're always feasting, you won't be ready for the famine. And we all just went through a famine time. We all
Yep.
just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I know it seems like it was a long time ago, but the whole world stopped spinning for about 2 or 3 months,
And
and then it took a
we might be
while.
going through it again, right?
We might be going through it again. Okay,
This
so
looming recession, as they say.
exactly, it's there's always a recession coming, always. Okay, there's always a recession. A wise man once told me recessions happen about 2 times every 10 years, and one of them is usually really bad. The one we had in 2020 wasn't really bad. We ain't seen nothing. It was nothing like '08. It was nothing like '01. It was nothing like '91, whatever year it was. Okay, make sure you are planning for the famine times. Of course, give us 5 stars or thumbs up, whatever it is you're supposed to do on these apps. Subscribe, like, everything. More than anything, share it with a friend. Share the love of financial literacy. Help someone else think about their finances a little bit better so that they can start to rewrite their money script. Again, I'm Yohance Harrison with the Money Script Podcast. We will see you next time.
Peace.